When the last human ship refused to surrender, the Empire finally understood fear. Fleet Admiral Soren of the Veth Imperial Fleet was a methodical man. In 43 years of service, he had never lost a vessel he'd been assigned to capture. He had never lost an engagement he'd had the numbers for. He had studied war with the kind of patient rigor that most species applied to peaceful scholarship, and he had arrived at a philosophy that had served him well across 4 decades. Numbers are honest. Outcomes follow from them. The UES Endurance was a frigate, human construction, angular, utilitarian, the kind of ship designed for function over elegance. It was running at 30% engine capacity. Its shields were offline. Its crew complement, by his intelligence, was 19. Against his patrol fleet of 62 vessels, the math was not a calculation. It was a statement. He had sent the first formal surrender demand at 0600. Standard protocol. 3 opportunities. Standard intervals. He was not, despite what some of his colleagues believed, cruel. He was efficient. The Endurance's crew was outnumbered, outgunned, and unable to run. The only variable was how long they needed to accept the mathematics of their situation. He had expected hours, perhaps, a day at most. At 0600, the first demand went out. Standard language. Lay down arms. Prepare to be boarded. No hostile action will be taken if they complied. The response came back in 47 seconds. Asterisk, Fleet Admiral Soren. Message received. Request clarification on several points of the surrender protocol. Specifically, what are the relevant provisions of the Galactic Maritime Convention regarding prize vessels and crew rights? We want to make sure we understand our options. Captain Mara Osei, UES Endurance. Asterisk. His communications officer stared at the message for a long moment. They're asking questions, she said. I see that. About the legal framework for surrender. I see that as well. Soren looked at the Endurance on his display. Still, engines minimal, clearly not going anywhere. Not powering weapons. Not attempting to run. Just sitting there, asking about maritime law. He had his legal officer draft a response. He sent the second formal demand at 0900. The Endurance requested 4 additional clarifications. All procedural. All infuriatingly legitimate questions under Galactic Naval Convention. His legal officer spent 90 minutes drafting responses. The third demand went out at 1300. The Endurance acknowledged receipt and said they were discussing it internally and would respond shortly. Soren sat at his command dais and did what he always did. Ran the numbers. The numbers had not changed. 62 ships, 19 humans, 1 damaged frigate. What had changed was something he didn't have a good word for. The Endurance wasn't fighting. It wasn't fleeing. It wasn't surrendering. It was conducting itself as though the siege were a procedural matter to be resolved through proper channels. And they happened to have some questions about the channels. His tactical officer approached. Admiral, we're detecting something unusual from the Endurance. Weapons? No, sir. Passive scans. Deep spectrum. Tight beam. There. She checked the display again. They appear to be running comprehensive sensor sweeps of the surrounding area. Of what? Everything, sir. Our fleet disposition. Local system geography. Deep background. They've been running passive collection for, she calculated. The sweeps began approximately 90 minutes after your first demand. They have been continuous since. Soren considered this. They're gathering intelligence. That would appear to be correct, sir. While we're besieging them. Yes, sir. He looked at the Endurance. Still quiet. Still, apparently, asking questions and running sensors. The specific sensation he felt was not one he had a name for. It was adjacent to the thing you felt when you realized you had been watching the wrong hand. 17 hours. The siege continued. At hour 4, the Endurance requested confirmation that they were, in fact, under the command authority of Fleet Admiral Soren specifically, as opposed to the standard Veth Imperial Patrol Command. They wanted to ensure any agreement was reached with the appropriate authority. Soren confirmed. His legal officer noted, privately, that the question was procedurally sound. At hour 7, the Endurance requested a brief pause in communications. Captain Osei indicated they were conducting an internal crew welfare assessment and wanted to ensure everyone's status was documented before proceeding. Soren granted a 2-hour pause. He wasn't sure why. It had seemed like the right thing to do. At hour 9, the Endurance resumed contact and provided an update. Crew of 19, all accounted for, minor injuries from previous engagement. They expressed appreciation for the pause. They had some additional questions about the legal framework. At hour 12, Soren's intelligence officer came to him with something that had made the intelligence officer, a 20-year veteran who had reviewed the files of 43 enemy commanders, look at her data twice before bringing it to him. Admiral, the passive collection from the Endurance. What about it? I've been running analysis on their scan signature and cross-referencing with our own emissions. They're collecting detailed data on. She set the display on his desk. On us, sir. On our fleet. Individual vessel signatures. Power output profiles. Engine specifications. Course patterns. They're mapping us. They're mapping us. Precisely. Comprehensively. And she hesitated. Apparently accurately. Based on what I can reconstruct of their scan parameters, they should be able to correlate individual vessels to class, armament, and approximate crew complement. Soren looked at the Endurance on his display. 19 people, 1 damaged frigate, no shields, no meaningful engine capacity, surrounded by 62 ships, and they were building a tactical database. What else, he said, because he was beginning to understand that there was always something else. We also believe they've been monitoring our communications, not decrypting. Our encryption is above their current technology, but they appear to be cataloging our communication patterns, frequency preferences, protocol sequences, the kind of data that she paused, the kind of data that would support decryption attempts later. Given time, they're playing a long game, he said. That would appear to be the case, sir. From a disabled frigate under siege. Yes, sir. He sent the 4th demand at 1,700 hours. He had, by this point, delayed it twice. He wasn't certain why, except that something about the situation felt like a problem he hadn't correctly defined yet, and he preferred to understand problems before resolving them. The response came back in 11 minutes. It was not a surrender. It was coordinates, not their location. They knew their location. The coordinates of 43 Veth Imperial installations within a 40 light-year radius of the current position. Each one labeled. Each one annotated with estimated personnel counts, operational function, and a confidence rating for the data quality. The confidence ratings range from 73 to 91%. Captain Osei's accompanying note read, ** Fleet Admiral. In the interest of productive dialogue, we've assembled a summary of the regional intelligence we've gathered over the past 17 hours. We thought this might be useful context for any ongoing discussions. We're still open to conversation about the surrender protocol questions we raised earlier, specifically the crew rights provisions. We have some thoughts on how a mutually satisfactory arrangement might be reached, if you're interested. Captain Morrow, say, UES Endurance. *. Soren read the coordinates list 3 times. He cross-referenced 7 of them against his classified installation data. 7 of 7 matched. He sat very still for a period of time he did not afterward record in his personal log. Act 3. The boarding that didn't happen. His tactical officer appeared at his elbow. *Admiral. Orders. He looked at the Endurance. He thought about what was on the other side of that airlocked hull. 19 people. A ship at 30% engine capacity. Shields down. No weapons hot. And a complete intelligence package on 43 Imperial installations that they had assembled, apparently, as a constructive activity to fill the hours. He thought about what would happen when he boarded. He had a complete force advantage. His people would control every corridor within 20 minutes. 19 humans against 62 ships worth of boarding parties was not a fight. It was a formality. And at the end of it, he would be in possession of 19 people who had just demonstrated, in 17 hours with a damaged ship under siege, that they could produce better regional intelligence than his own dedicated analyst had produced in 6 months. He thought about what those 19 people would do with 17 hours in a Veth detention facility. He thought about what they would do with access to a Veth ship's internal systems, however brief, during any boarding action. He thought about what they would find interesting on a Veth detention station, what questions they would ask, what they would document. He thought about the note. We thought this might be useful context. They weren't threatening him. They were offering him something. A demonstration of what they'd been doing with their time, dressed as a helpful gesture. A very clear signal, wrapped in impeccable courtesy. He had spent 43 years studying war. He had never encountered a message quite like this one. Asterisk, we have something you don't know we have. We are telling you we have it, not to threaten you, but to show you what we can do with 17 hours and nothing to work with. Consider what we could do with time, resources, and motivation. Asterisk, we're still interested in a conversation. We are very patient. Soren made a decision. Stand down boarding parties. His tactical officer looked at him. Sir, stand down. He closed the coordinates file. Logged this as a patrol contact resulting in no engagement. Endurance was scouted and found to be proceeding on authorized transit. He paused. Note that their engine was confirmed damaged. They are non-hostile. Admiral. She kept her voice very neutral. The Endurance is not on any authorized transit. Then logged that we were unable to verify their authorization status and release them pending documentation. He looked at her steadily. Is there a problem? There was a long pause. No, sir. He opened a channel to the Endurance. Captain Osei, you are free to proceed. A pause of 4 seconds. Thank you, Fleet Admiral. Safe travels. Another pause. We'll pass along your regards to whoever's running Station Theta 9 these days. Station Theta 9 was on the coordinates list. Its existence was classified at the highest level his authorization allowed. He closed the channel. Act 4, what it meant. 3 months later, in a briefing room at Veth Imperial Command, Soren presented the incident to the Joint Intelligence Review. He had spent 3 months deciding what to say and how to say it. He had brought the coordinates list. He had brought his tactical officer's analysis of the Endurance's passive collection methodology. He had brought Captain Osei's note. He did not present these as evidence of a threat. He presented them as a lesson. 17 hours, he said. 1 damaged frigate. 19 crew. No active systems. And they built this. He indicated the coordinates list, not as a weapon, as a demonstration, as a gesture of good faith, offered to an opponent who had every material advantage, as if to say, we understand your position. We would like you to understand ours. He looked at the assembled commanders. Their intelligence methodology is not adversarial. It is reflexive. They gather information the way other species breathe, continuously, automatically, without effort and without stopping. The act of observing is not a strategic choice for them. It is a default state. A commander near the back said, so they're spying on us constantly. They're curious about us constantly, Soren said. The outcome is similar. The intention is different. The intention is, in some respects, more difficult to counter. He thought about the note. We thought this might be useful context. We cannot build a protocol around an adversary that is primarily curious, he said. Every protocol we have assumes motivation we can model. Aggression, self-preservation, resource acquisition. Curiosity doesn't fit any of our frameworks. It doesn't stop. It doesn't have a threshold. It doesn't respond to deterrence. He paused. What do you do with an opponent that learns about you not because they intend to use it against you, but because not learning would feel like a wasted opportunity? The briefing room was quiet. I don't know, Soren said, but I recommend we start figuring it out, because they already know where Theta 9 is. He left the room. In the corridor, he thought about the Endurance, about Mara Osei's voice on the calm, procedural, infuriatingly courteous, about 19 people spending 17 hours of a siege building something, because that seemed like the productive use of the time. He thought about what humanity had done with 61 years of quarantine, and then he thought about what they do with time, resources, and actual access. He thought about this for a long time. The intelligence package became the foundation of humanity's first formal military doctrine for the new galactic era. The doctrine's first principle, circulated to every Sol Fleet command in a document that was, in typical human fashion, both rigorously technical and oddly optimistic. Asterisk never let a crisis go to waste. Every constrained situation is a data collection opportunity. Act accordingly. Asterisk. Captain Mara Osei received a commendation. She had, by the time it arrived, already written a paper on Veth Fleet communication protocols based on her 17 hours of observation. She submitted it to the newly established Xena Military Studies Journal. It was peer-reviewed by 3 humans and 1 Keth scholar who had not entirely expected to become a peer reviewer for a human academic journal, but had found, once she started reading, that she couldn't stop. The paper's conclusion was brief. Asterisk. The most significant finding of this engagement is not intelligence-specific. It is behavioral. Under conditions of significant material disadvantage, human tactical instinct defaults not to desperation, but to documentation. This may be the most honest summary of what makes humanity difficult to model. In a crisis, they take notes. Asterisk.